Alright, let's start our project. In this section, we're going to work on the HTML part of the project. As you can see, we have put the final version here for our comparison. As you can see, there is a container in the middle with the title tip calculator. Then we have two inputs. One is bill amount, one is tip percentage. And finally, we have a button to calculate this. The first things we need to do is to create a folder, and we're going to open this folder inside the Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it the name of our project, which is tip-calculator. And once we have created this folder, we can just open it inside the Visual Studio Code by right-click and click on Open with Code. So now we have this folder as a default folder of the Explorer section of Visual Studio Code. As you can see, tip calculator. Let's close the Welcome tab, and here we just create a new file and we call it index.html. And once we have created the HTML file, now we need to just create the HTML5 boilerplate, which we can achieve by just adding an exclamation mark. If you have activated your Emmet abbreviation, you should see this suggestion. And if you press on tab, you're going to get the HTML5 boilerplate. Let me explain this one real quick. We have here .type, which tells the browser which version of HTML we are using. As we are using HTML5, we just need to have HTML here in the opening tag. Then we have the HTML tag, which covers the head and the body section. The opening tag of the HTML has a lang attribute, which defines the language of the page. And as we are using English, we just need to write down EN for the language, which stands for English. Then we have the head tag, which covers the metadata tag and also the title tag. The metadata tags, the first one relates to the chart set attribute, and for HTML5, UTF-8 is recommended because it nearly contains all the characters and symbols. Then we have the compatibility metadata tag, which tells the Internet Explorer browser to use the most recent rendering engine, which is Edge. Then we have the viewport metadata tag, which sets the width of the screen, width of the browser to device's width. For example, the person who is using mobile will have a smaller browser width than the person who is using desktop or tablet. And here the initial scale is the initial zoom level of the browser, which is set to be 100% by default. And after that, we have the title document. So let's open the let's open this website inside the browser using the extension that we have installed, and which is called Live Server. So if you click on this Go Live, this is going to open it inside the inside the browser, the default browser, which is in my case Google Chrome. And you can see that it is open in the port 5500, and the file is called index.html, and then the title is document. Let's bring the website to the right side and the Visual Studio Code on the left side, and let's change this title to the name of our project, which is tip calculator. As you can see, now the title is changed to tip calculator. After that, we're going to have inside the body section, we're going to have a container which is going to cover everything. So I'm going to add a div with a class of container by just writing down dot container. And if you press enter, we're going to create a div with a class of container. And here we're going to have an h1 tag saying tip calculator. After the h1 tag, as you can see, we're going to have a paragraph, and inside the paragraph we're going to say enter the bill amount and tip percentage to calculate the total. After the paragraph, we're going to have two inputs, and each input is going to have a label. So I'm going to add a label, and this is going to be for the bill. So we just say for bill, and then the name inside the label, we're going to say bill amount. After that, we're going to have a input with the type of numbers. So just say type number. And this input, as you can see, we can now change this value inside the input. After that, we're going to have a line break. We just say BR. We add a line break. This is should be like that. And then we're going to have another label. And this label is going to be for the tip, which is going to say tip percentage and this is going to be number as well, the input with the type of number. So in order to distinguish between these inputs, later using JavaScript, I'm going to add an ID for the first one and then call it bill. And for the second one, I'm going to add an ID saying tip. And then after the inputs, the second input, I'm going to add another line break. And then we're going to add the button. So we're going to have a button with the ID of calculate. So I'm going to add a hashtag for the ID. We just say calculate and we press enter. This is going to create a button with the ID of calculate. And inside the button, we're going to say just calculate. So we see the button now. After the button, we're going to have another line break. So I'm going to copy this. And after the but here, we're going to have another label for the total, saying total. And this is going to be a span, not an input, because we don't want to change its value. And this is going to just have an ID of total. Okay. Yeah, that was it for the HTML part of the project. As you can see, we have just added the h1 tag here, paragraph, two inputs with the labels, and a calculate button, and finally another label for total. In the next section, we're going to work on the CSS part of the project, and we're going to style it like the one in the final version with this beautiful modern design with the box shadow. And we're gonna create these beautiful hovering effect for the button. So see you in the next section for the CSS part of the project.